Got a new candle. Hey, that's big news around here. Hello everyone, I'm Father Aaron. Welcome to the Dungeon Minister. We have been following our adventurers, Fleetwood and Bob Johnny, the second level elves, Touchberry, third level halfling, and Fowfire, fourth level thief, as they have been searching for flower seeds. Okay, that doesn't sound terribly impressive, but these are special flower seeds. They're seeds for flowers that grow to be 12, 15, 20 feet tall, a forest of flowers that used to surround the town of Honeywood. And they have been sent on this quest by Rupert the Druid, who wants to re-establish that forest which died out some 200 years ago. They have followed the advice of a blue jay and found the flower fields. After having fought some robber flies, dealt with some sprites, not now, and a tree ant. And finally, goblins. Goblins who had the temerity to camp on Halder's Rock, Halder being a great hero of the elves from 1500 years ago. Anyhow, all along the way they have been haunted, disturbed, unsettled by that. After having camped a night on Halder's Rock, after having defeated the goblins, of course, they are now going to set out into the forest to discover what is making that horrible howling noise. Before setting out, the elves memorize their spells. For Bob Johnny, 2 magic missiles, please. For Fleetwood, a sleep and a light, thank you very much. And off they go. Although their path home lies westward along the coastline, they have struck out south into the woods because that is where they heard the sound the previous night. They push into the forest and begin, essentially, a hex crawl. It's the second one on the adventure. They had earlier gotten lost in the sprites area. But now there's no sprites to bail them out. They're simply casting about in the forest, looking for signs of this creature. With each hex they advance into, I'm rolling a percentage to see if they detect any signs of the creature. Now, it's not hard to detect because this thing is big, 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 big. So eventually, they do. They find broken underbrush, ripped up saplings, and enormous footprints. They are vaguely humanish in shape, and so they know they're dealing with some sort of humanoid creature. Anyhow, they follow these tracks as they head further south. Eventually, they come across a stream. Now, this stream, as it wends its way through the forest, eventually bends to the east and empties into the Great Northern Sea. They came to this stream, and the little cove, the little lagoon where it does finally filter into the Great Northern Sea, they came across that on their way to the flowers. Now, however, they discover that the footprints join up with the stream and head upriver, deeper into the woods. And in fact, as they go, they see other sets of prints that have gone off in other directions, all coming back to this river. Whatever it is has been using the river as a path, because, of course, along the riverside, it's a little clearer, there's less brush, there's less noise to make as it's hunting. Also, it could be hunting creatures that come to the river to drink. And it uses the stream to help find its way back wherever it's going. Well, where it's going becomes apparent as they come to a hollow, an area where the river flows out of, but around the sides and behind is a raised portion of land. In fact, there is a small cliff that the stream is issuing out of. There's a cave there, and the stream is issuing out of that. In front of the cave, they see this, a clearing, trampled ground, packed under huge feet. A large fire pit, around which are boulders and logs of a scale that suggests a very large creature sitting around the fire. Alongside the stream are a couple of, well, they look like buckets to the adventurers. They are, in fact, drinking vessels. They have discovered the home of something very large. These signs, along with the memory of that horrible voice, unsettle them, and they decide they're going to sneak into the woods and watch this clearing. Well, it is now late morning, the midst of the day, the sun is at its highest and brightest. Nothing's coming out of this cave. Whatever it is nocturnal, and it must be inside sleeping. They finally arrive at that conclusion after they wait for an hour or two. And so they decide to go in to investigate. Lanterns lit, weapons out, in they go. The stream winds its way out of the cave. I should point out the scale on this is 1 square equaling 10 feet. The cave curves back into the hillside, the stream running a little bit off-center, leaving a wider path to one side, and the ground there, the normally loose sort of sandy soil of the cave, that ground is packed hard. Something big comes and goes here regularly, of course. The passage soon widens out into a cavern of decent size, in which 2 branches of stream meet and then proceed out of the exit. One is smaller. The one ahead is a thinner stream than the one that is coming in from the adventurer's right. On the sides of the stream, both in between the intersection and to one side of the main stream, there are piles of detritus. And when the adventurers look closely, they find it is mostly clothing and gear. Leather belts, pouches, empty backpacks, things like that. Things which would have been carried by elves, dwarves, humans. Food, essentially, for whatever lives here. And these being the inedible bits, they have just been tossed aside. This is the garbage pile. Now, in that garbage pile, there is actually a scroll with 2 copies of a 2nd level spell. I know that the elves are approaching 3rd level. They will eventually get there, and they're going to want some spells for that level. I thought I would give them something that might be helpful down the road. But they neglect to search the piles carefully. But I can toss it in some other adventure later on. That's fine. There is also here a couple more large drinking vessels. The adventurers are very tense. They listen carefully. But one of the features of this cave is that this flowing stream obscures sound. It fills the cave with the sound of running water, and so it's very difficult to hear anything other than the flowing stream. Well, they look around the corners. They don't see anything immediately in either passage, so they decide to go straight forward, where the thinner stream comes out of a passageway. In they go, and they discover it's really not much of a passageway. It's just a slight narrowing of the rock, which then widens out again to a chamber, smaller than the first, through which this trickle of stream flows. It comes out of the far wall in a crevice, and beyond that, it is impassable. And so this is a dead end. They look around in here. The dirt here is not packed down. In fact, there's no real indication of anything coming in or out, no life whatsoever. And so they're about to turn to leave when they spot something shiny in the stream. Gold! Wow, let's grab it! Okay, now, they set Fofire, the thief, as a guard on the door, and they go and gather around the treasure and start fishing coins out of the stream. As they are doing so, wham! Fleetwood is attacked from behind. He spins around, grabbing his weapons from the floor where he had left them, grabbing his weapons, and what is it? What is it? He can't see anything. There's nothing there. The others start looking around, eyes like saucers. Fofire comes back, looking around. What is it? Finally, someone spots something moving. They open the lantern full. They'd had it almost closed. They open the lantern full and shine its light. Nothing. They can't see anything. There was a movement in there, surely. There it is again. Dark shape moving through the shadows. It's not moving through the shadows. It is a shadow. Yeah, one of the coolest monsters in the BECMI basic set. I love these things. They're incorporeal, they're not undead, but they're ghost-like. They're a creature of some kind, and of course it leads to all sorts of questions, you know. This is one of the things I love about BECMI. The monster descriptions are like a paragraph long, maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs for dragons and that kind of stuff. I've looked in the 5e monster manual, and there's 2, 3 pages of explanation about every monster, which is great, but here, shadows. Mysterious, dangerous, you get 1 short paragraph. That's it. Make it up yourself. Okay, we'll make it up ourselves. Cool. This monster is dangerous. It cannot be hit by anything other than magic weapons and magic damage. It can't be slept, but it can't be turned because it's not undead, so a cleric couldn't turn it. It is a dangerous creature, and the note even says, only put it in when your party has magic weapons. Well, We happen to have two. Touchberry got a magic sword at the Barrow-wights' tomb, and Fleetwood got a magic sword up at the keep. They can fight it, but it's not easy. They finally figure out what it is that's moving there. They finally figure out it's some sort of dark shape that doesn't have a defined presence, a defined image. They can't really make it out, but they can see well enough to fight it. And so the fight is on. It's not an easy fight. One of the things about the shadow is every time it hits, if it has a successful hit, the victim takes damage and loses a point of strength. Now, it's a temporary drop in strength, but still, it's a drop in strength. So, Fleetwood has been hit, knocks off a point of his strength. Bowfire gets hit, knocks off a point of her strength, and she's a thief. She didn't have a lot of strength to work with to begin with. They eventually do defeat the thing, because once they figure out where it is, and they figure out that only magic and magic weapons can hit it, well, Bob Johnny shoots a magic missile, Touchberry and Fleetwood have swords, they eventually do finish it off. But it's a terrifying moment, and then they think, well, this was it, this was the thing we heard. But they think, no, it didn't make any noise while we fought it. Utterly silent, that's the other creepy thing about it. Utterly silent as we fought it. When it died, there was a shriek like a distant echo. Well, kind of like the Nazgul from the Lord of the Rings movies, right? That kind of awful, shrieking, dry sound. Not what they heard in the forest. All right. They check each other out, got a couple of wounds, and this strength thing is getting them nervous because they don't know if it's permanent or not. They collect up the treasure. I should point out a mistake I made in the last episode. I said that they were gathering the seeds from the flowers up in large sacks, and they do indeed have large sacks. I'd forgotten, however, that Rupert gave them a bag of holding when he sent them on their journey. He said, here's my old bag of holding. I want it back. You can't have it. But do put the seeds in there, and then you can bring more home. So they're not lugging, like Santa-like, like some sort of herbologist Santa lugging around seeds on their shoulders. So they do have that bag of holding. At any rate, though, they take the treasure, and I think they put that into a normal sack, and then they're going to see what else they can find down here. They very cautiously now, and with a lot of trepidation, begin walking through, and they make sure to close their lantern back again to just a slit as they make their way through that other passage. Now again, that water rushing through is pretty noisy, so it hides a lot of sounds, so they can't tell. Was that something stirring? Was that something roaring? Was that someone talking? They can't really tell. Now that does work to their advantage. I've put this here for a reason. We're introducing some big monsters, and I want to give them a chance to fight them sort of one at a time or in limited numbers. One of the things about a dungeon, of course, is if you've got two rooms separated by a little hallway, and you've got monsters in each room, a goblin party in each room, and they go in and they fight one of them, well, the sound is going to carry, right? And so it's not going to be long before those goblins come in to check it out. As an experiment, get out your pots and pans and stand in the kitchen and bang the pots and pans together as loud as you can, like swords on armor. And then see if the other people in the house don't come down and say, "What are you doing in here? What you doing with your pots and pans? What's going on?" So you can't really, justify a huge battle happening one place without the other monsters in the area hearing it, but the stream can cover up a little bit. So what I say is that if there's someone adjacent within a couple of chambers, if the combat goes more than 3 rounds, they hear it. That seems fair. At any rate, there's going to be some combat because they come into this next chamber. And the stream comes through, and it comes out of a passage to their right. And coming out of that passage to the right is a roar of water. It's not just the normal stream sound, which is loud enough. It's even louder from there. More on that later. There's another passage ahead of them, but their attention is arrested by the large form sleeping on the ground, leaned up against the wall, an enormous club laying on the floor. Next to it, an ogre. I love the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons figures from the 80s. I do. I think they were really cool. But orange? Why is he orange? I mean, of all the colors, why orange? Hi. My ogres aren't orange. They do look like that otherwise, though. Now, this guy is a sentry. He was put here on guard duty because the ogres, in their hunting trips out and about the previous nights, had found signs that there were some creatures up here. So they know there's someone out there. So they tell this guy, you guard, we'll relieve you in an hour or two. Well, no one came to relieve him, and he fell asleep against the wall. The party starts debating what to do about this guy. We should just leave. We should sneak past him. No, we should kill him in his sleep. Murder hobos. Anyhow, they're debating about this, and I tell them, everything that you are saying around the table here, your characters are saying in the game. And so the longer you talk, and they realize, oh yeah, he's going to wake up at some point, and indeed he starts to stir. They decide, that's it, we're killing him. And they attack. And here's an interesting and awkward situation. You're going to attack something. It has an armor class, right? But it's just sitting there. It's asleep. Clearly, you can hit it. Whether you can cut through its armor or its hide, that's another issue. But you're going to be only a complete klutz. Would take their sword and, oh, no, I missed! Oh, no, I missed! Obviously you're going to be able to hit the thing. So I lowered the AC just to say, well, yeah, you can make contact. Will you do damage? Well, that remains to be seen. I think it's Bob Johnny who actually does some damage. Touchberry comes so close to the hit, but I say, no, that creature's hide is tough. Your sword does not pierce through. What it does do is wake him up. Boom! 2 huge fists, and Touchberry and Bob Johnny both fly back, having taken some substantial damage. Battle on. Now, the ogre has to get up, right? He has to stand and grab his club. That gives them some advantage, and they take advantage of it. They attack, they attack, they attack. It is 4-on-1, and although he's a tough opponent, and he has done some pretty serious damage, the whole thing is over in 2 rounds of combat. Now, did anyone hear? Okay, no one heard us. Where to now? They decide that they want to follow the stream. They figure they'll follow the stream out and find out why it's so loud out that way. So, again, lantern shuttered, weapons drawn. They begin through the passage. As soon as they're through, they see why it is so loud. The cavern, which has been around 15 feet tall, somewhere in that area, in this room is 20-25 feet up. In fact, it goes almost to the surface, where there is a hole through which the stream is pouring. That's what's making so much noise. The water is crashing down 20-25 feet to splash in this pool, and then winding out in the stream through the caves. They look to their right, and they see a sort of bag end of a cave here. And at the far end of it, just in the edge of their dim light, they see 3 shapes on the floor. They get a little closer, they risk a little bit more light, and they make out 3 sleeping ogres. Now, one of them is the same size as the one they just fought. The other 2 are much smaller. These are the kids. And here, I have to say, I'm kind of proud of my kids. They didn't want to kill sleeping children, right? Even if they're ogres, that's not cool. So they just back out of that room. We're going to leave them entirely alone. But there's another passage. Let's check that out.